You know, every so often, you hear a story that just stops you in your tracks. A story that makes you really question what you thought you knew about people, about our basic instinct to help each other out. Well, today, we're getting into one of those stories, and the pretty uncomfortable science it brought to light.
So I want you to picture this. It's March 13th, 1964. We're in a neighborhood in Queens, New York. A 28-year-old woman, Kitty Genovese, is just walking home after her shift. It's a quiet, normal neighborhood. You know, the kind of place you're supposed to feel totally safe. But what happened to her that night, it became a national nightmare.
Skeptic. Kitty was attacked. Horribly. And the part of the story that just shocked everyone, the detail that ended up on the front page of the newspapers, was this number, 38. That's how many of her neighbors supposedly saw parts of the attack or heard her screaming for help from inside their apartments.
And this is the question I just can't shake. For over half an hour, 38 people supposedly did nothing. Now, okay, we now know that original New York Times report exaggerated that number a bit, but the core of the story, the horrible truth, was real. A lot of people were aware something terrible was happening, and nobody really stepped in to stop it. I mean, how is that even possible? Were they all just monsters? It feels like some kind of fundamental breakdown of human decency.
And that's the exact question everyone was asking. The horror of what happened to Kitty Genovese, even the slightly exaggerated version, it really pushed two social psychologists, John Darley and Bib Latane, to find an answer. And they had a hunch that the reason wasn't that the city was suddenly full of monsters, but that it was something much more predictable, and, in a way, almost more disturbing. Just a weird glitch in how our brains work.
And they gave that glitch a name, the Bystander Effect. It's totally counterintuitive, right? You'd think more people around means you're safer, more eyes, more potential helpers. But what their research showed was the total opposite. The more people who witness an emergency, the less likely it is that any single one of them will actually do something to help.
Exactly. It's not that people don't care. It's not about being a bad person. It's much better to think of it like a bug in our social software, an error that can happen to any of us, pretty much whenever we find ourselves in a group.
So what's causing this glitch? Well, Darley and Latane pinpointed two main psychological forces that are at play.
Okay, hold on. Are these just, fancy academic terms to let people off the hook? Because it still really sounds like people are just trying to avoid taking responsibility.
Well, it's a little more complex than that. The first piece of the puzzle is what we call diffusion of responsibility. It's basically the somebody else will handle it problem. Think about it this way. If you're in a crowded park and you see some trash on the ground, the responsibility to pick it up is spread so thin across all those people that no one person feels like it's their job to do it. Well, in an emergency, that same mental logic kicks in and it can paralyze us. We just assume, oh, surely someone else has already called 911.
And the second mechanism is even sneakier. It's called pluralistic ignorance. See, as social animals, we're always looking to other people for clues on how to act. Is that person shouting on the street just messing around with their friends, or are they in real trouble? So what do? We look around, and we see that nobody else is reacting. So our brain goes, okay, I guess it's not a big deal. But here's the catch. Every single other person is looking at you and thinking the exact same thing. And it creates this crazy feedback loop where everyone's inaction convinces everyone else that inaction is the right move.
And this whole thing gets so much worse if the situation isn't clear-cut, or if you're in a crowd of strangers you don't know, or if you're just plain scared of getting hurt, or maybe even just looking stupid. It's really like a perfect psychological storm for doing nothing.
Right, okay. I can see how that would happen in a crowd on a city street back in the 60s. But what about now? I mean, we live our lives online now. We're all connected, all the time. We're constant witnesses. Does the bystander effect still happen in our digital world?
Oh, absolutely. And you could argue that in some ways it's even stronger online.
Just think about it for a second. Watching a coworker get constantly interrupted or dismissed in meetings and just staying quiet. Seeing someone get absolutely piled on in a comment section and just scrolling right past it. These are the Kitty Genovese moments of our time. The crowd is just digital, and that feeling of personal responsibility is spread even thinner across hundreds or even thousands of people.
So you mean like in a work group chat, somebody says something totally inappropriate and it's met with just silence? Crickets?
That is a perfect example of digital pluralistic ignorance. 20 people see that offensive comment. Every single one of them is watching to see how the others will react. And that silence, it gets interpreted as approval, or at least that it's not a big deal, even if 10 of those people are privately thinking, wow, that was not okay. No one feels like it's their individual duty to be the first one to break that silence.
Wow. This is all pretty depressing, honestly. It kind of sounds like we're just hardwired to be passive and to stand by and do nothing. I mean, are we just doomed to this psychological glitch?
No, not at all. And this is really the most important takeaway here. The single biggest step you can take to overcome the bystander effect is simply knowing that it exists. Seriously, just by listening to this right now, you've started to build up an immunity to it. Awareness really is the key. The second you recognize that little voice in your head, that hesitation, that someone else will handle it thought, you can consciously choose to ignore it.
And to make it even easier, psychologists have come up with a really simple tool to help you short-circuit the effect in the moment. It's called the A.C.T model. Okay, so A is for aware. You now know what the bystander effect is, so check. C is for clarify. You have to remove any confusion. So if you're the one who needs help, don't just scream, shout something explicit like, I need help, call 911. And then there's T for target. This is the real game changer. Realist expert, you never ever just yell for help into a crowd. You single one person out. You point. You in the blue shirt, call 911 right now. That one sentence just shatters the diffusion of responsibility. Suddenly, it's not the crowd's vague problem anymore. It's that one specific person's direct responsibility. And the social pressure immediately flips from don't do anything to you have to do something.
So, you see, learning about the bystander effect isn't about looking back and judging the people who did nothing. It's about empowering yourself to be the person who does something, if and when the time comes.
Right. The next time you find yourself in a crowd, whether it's on the streets or in a group chat, and you see something that's not right, you'll know that hesitation you feel is normal. But now, you'll also know exactly what to do to push right through it. So the question isn't just, why do good people do nothing? It's, will you be the one to act?